I don't remember when I first noticed her. Not really. She was always just there. The one who opened the door when I came over to see her son. The one who offered me water in a glass that felt heavier than it should. The one who asked if I was staying for dinner without looking directly at me. It wasn't until months later, standing in line at the corner coffee shop, that she became more than my friend's mom. I was half awake, scrolling through old texts I never sent. Dumb jokes, questions I typed out at 1 a.m. and left unsent, as if pressing send would make me look like I cared too much. The line shuffled forward, and then I heard her voice, soft but certain. Black coffee. No sugar. I looked up. She was right in front of me, already handing cash to the barista. Same calm tone as always. Like she'd been saying those words every morning for years. When she turned, she caught me staring. I dropped my eyes to the floor tiles, heat crawling up my neck. "You're up early," she said. I nodded, useless. "Yeah. Couldn't sleep." Her mouth curved in something not quite a smile. "Coffee helps." We ended up sitting near each other. Not at the same table. Just close enough that I could hear her flipping the pages of a book, the scratch of her pen making notes in the margin. I kept glancing, pretending to check my phone, but really watching the way she held her mug with both hands like it was something fragile. When she finally looked up, her eyes landed right on me. "What?" she asked, not unkindly. Panicked. "Nothing. Just, what are you reading?" She lifted the book slightly, enough for me to see the cover. Something about architecture. I didn't know a thing about it, but I nodded as if I did. She laughed under her breath. Not at me exactly, more like she'd seen through me and decided to let it pass. We didn't talk much after that. Just sat in the same quiet air, her scribbling notes, me pretending to scroll. But I noticed things. How she tilted her head when she thought. How she tapped her finger against the mug when she disagreed with whatever she was reading. How her hair fell forward and she didn't bother to fix it. I wanted to say something else. Anything. But words felt heavy, like lifting them would expose too much. So instead, I folded the napkin I hadn't used, pressing the edges into neat lines until it looked like something almost precise. I don't know if she saw. When I finally stood to leave, she looked up again. "Same place tomorrow?" she asked. I blinked. "What?" Her eyes held mine for a beat too long. "Coffee. You're usually around here, aren't you?" Yeah. Sometimes." She nodded like that was enough, then went back to her book. Just like that, I walked home slower than usual, my coffee gone cold in my hand. By the time I reached my door, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You forgot your jacket at the shop." And beneath it, her name. I told myself I'd go back to the coffee shop just to grab my jacket. Nothing more. But when I pushed through the glass door the next morning, there she was, already sitting at the corner table with her book open, her hand wrapped around a mug that looked too hot to hold. My jacket was draped neatly over the back of the chair across from her, like she'd been saving the seat. "You're forgetful," she said without looking up. "Or maybe I just knew you'd bring it back." That made her laugh, quiet but real. She closed the book and gestured for me to sit. We didn't talk much at first. Just the scrape of my chair, the steam rising between us. She poured a little of her coffee into the saucer to cool it. I remembered my friend once joking about how his mom hated burning her tongue, how she was too careful with small things. "You remember details," I said without thinking. She raised an eyebrow. "Details? About, well, like how you cool your coffee. Stuff people don't notice." She leaned back, considering me. That's not a bad habit to have. For a while, we sat in a quiet that didn't feel empty. She asked me about school, about work. I gave half answers, fumbling. Then, almost casually, she said, "I got divorced when your friend was 12. Coffee was the only thing that stayed the same." I didn't know what to say. My instinct was to look away, to give her privacy, but I couldn't. She wasn't sad when she said it, just matter-of-fact, like she was telling me the weather. Still, something in me tightened. I wanted to ask, "Why are you telling me this?" But I didn't. Instead, I folded the corner of my napkin again and again until it looked like nothing. Later, when she stood to leave, her hand brushed the table, close to mine. For a second, I imagined what it would be like if she touched me on purpose. If she left her hand there, waiting. But she didn't. She just reached for her jacket and said, "You're quieter than I expected." Quieter. She tilted her head. "Your friend always made noise everywhere he went. I thought you'd be the same." I smiled, weak. "Guess I save it." Her eyes lingered on me a moment too long. I wondered if she knew how much I wanted to say more. That night, I replayed the scene over and over, the laugh, the confession, the almost touch. It felt like standing at the edge of something I couldn't name. And when I finally drifted off, one thought circled back. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time we saw each other, it wasn't planned. Her porch light was on when I came by to drop off something her son had left in my car. He wasn't home. She answered the door in a loose sweater, sleeves pushed up, her hair damp like she'd just washed it. "Thought I heard someone," she said. Her voice was softer than usual, like the quiet had gotten inside her. I held up the bag. "He left this behind." She smiled faintly, took it from me, then opened the door wider. "Come in, just for a minute." The house was warmer than I remembered, carrying that faint smell of tea leaves and laundry detergent. She set the bag on the counter, then pulled a second mug from the cupboard. "Tea." I hesitated. "Sure." The kettle clicked on. We stood near it, neither of us moving much, the silence filling in the spaces words couldn't. I kept staring at her hands. How steady they were as she measured leaves. How she brushed a stray thread off her sleeve like it mattered more than anything I could have said. "You're different from him," she said suddenly. "Who?" "My son." I nodded, waiting. "You listen. You don't try to fill the room." I laughed. Awkward. Or maybe I don't know what to say. Her eyes flicked up at mine. "That too." The kettle whistled. She poured the water, slid a mug across the counter toward me. The steam rose between us, curling into nothing. And then the front door rattled. A voice, muffled. "Mom? You home?" My chest tightened. I hadn't thought about him walking in. Of course he might. She froze, then moved quickly, placing her finger to her lips. I nodded without breathing. A beat later, the door shut again. Footsteps trailed upstairs. A door closed. Silence. She exhaled, steady but low. "He didn't see you. I should have left then. But I didn't." We sat at the kitchen table, mugs between us. Neither of us spoke about what almost happened. Instead, she asked about work again, about whether I was keeping up with classes. I answered, but my voice sounded strange to me, like I was speaking through glass. At one point, she laughed at something I said, really laughed, the kind that tilted her head back. I caught myself staring at the line of her throat, the faint mark where her necklace had pressed into her skin. She noticed. The laugh faded. Her lips parted slightly, like she might say something. I leaned in before I could think. Not much, just enough to blur the space between us. Close enough to feel the warmth of her breath. Her hand lifted, hovered near my face. Not touching. Waiting. Then she pulled back. Stood too quickly, gathering the mugs, rinsing them in the sink as if nothing had happened. "Too late for more tea," she said, her back to me. I nodded, throat dry. When I left, the night air felt sharper than usual. And all I could think was how close we had come to something neither of us had the courage to name. We ended up on the park bench by accident. At least that's what I told myself. I'd been walking home. She'd been walking her dog. But when the leash tangled near my feet, she laughed, apologizing, and then neither of us moved on. The dog settled at our feet. The night was cool, just enough to see our breath when we exhaled. "You're quiet tonight," she said. I shrugged. "Just thinking. About." I almost lied. But the silence between us had weight. "About whether this is a mistake." Her hand tightened slightly on the leash. "What is this? Sitting here, talking like this?" She didn't answer right away. The dog shifted, snorted softly. Finally, she said, "You think too much. Maybe. But don't you?" Her lips pressed together. She looked away toward the empty swings. Every day. The honesty of it startled me. For a long time she didn't move, didn't blink. Then, softer, "You're my son's friend." I nodded, the words cutting sharper than I expected. "I know." Her shoulders rose, fell. "And I'm too old for this." "Too old for what?" That made her turn, finally. Her eyes caught mine, and I couldn't look away. "For feeling something I shouldn't," she whispered. The air felt suddenly fragile, like one wrong movement could break it. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I stayed still. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat a warning. "I shouldn't have said that," she murmured, shaking her head. "I'm glad you did," I said too quickly. Her breath hitched. For a second, her expression softened. Something between relief and fear. "You don't know what you're doing," she said. "Maybe not," I admitted. "But I know what I feel." That stopped her. Her eyes searched mine, as if waiting for me to laugh it off, to retreat. I didn't. She leaned back against the bench, staring at the night sky. "You'll regret it. You'll move on. People your age always do. And you." Her jaw tightened. "I don't get to move on that easily." The silence after that felt raw. A train in the distance. The wind nudging the leaves. Her hand shifting just slightly on the bench, close enough that my fingers could have brushed hers if I wanted. I did want to. I didn't. She exhaled slowly, eyes still on the sky. "Tell me, do you think about this when you're not here?" The question lingered, fragile and sharp all at once. I opened my mouth to answer, and then stopped, caught in the weight of everything that could unravel if I said too much. For 3 mornings I went to the coffee shop. She didn't. I told myself she was busy, or maybe tired. But on the 4th morning, I gave up pretending and walked past her house instead. The curtains were drawn. A car I didn't recognize was in the driveway. I almost knocked. Instead, I kept walking, hands shoved in my pockets, pulse too loud in my ears. That night, my friend mentioned offhand that his mom had been seeing someone. "Not serious," he said. "Just dinners, someone from her work." I nodded like it meant nothing, laughed it off. But later, lying in the dark, the thought curled tight around my chest. Someone else had sat across from her. Someone else had watched the way she cooled her coffee, the way she folded into silence. The next week, she came back to the shop. Same corner table, same book in hand. She looked up, saw me, and paused. Not surprised exactly, more like she'd been bracing for it. "You've been avoiding me," she said. "You weren't here." Her gaze flickered, quick. "I was busy. With him." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her jaw tightened. "That's not your business." I wanted to apologize, but I didn't. Instead, I stared at the table between us, at the faint ring a mug had left behind. She sighed softer now. "You're too young for this. Too young to feel something? Too young to carry it the way I do." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Not much, but enough. I almost reached for her hand. Almost. Instead, I leaned back, pressing the napkin flat against the table until it tore under my fingers. We sat there, neither speaking. The clock over the counter ticked too loudly. At one point, she started to say something. Her lips parted, her body shifted, but then she stopped, shook her head, looked away. I wanted her to finish the thought. I wanted to demand it, but I didn't. That night, I typed out a message. "I don't care if there's someone else. I just need to know if this meant anything to you." I read it 3 times. My thumb hovered over send. Then I deleted it. The next morning, her seat at the cafe was empty again. And it happened on a Tuesday night. No plan, no build-up. I was walking back from the store when I saw her on the porch, sitting alone with the porch light off, her face barely visible in the glow of her phone. I almost kept walking. My chest tightened at the thought of another awkward silence, another half-finished sentence. But then she saw me. She set the phone down, raised her hand in a small, uncertain wave. "Hey," I said, stopping at the bottom of the steps. "Hey." Neither of us moved. The crickets filled the gap. Finally, she shifted. "Do you want some tea?" I nodded. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something else I couldn't name. She moved quietly, like she was trying not to wake anyone, though the place was empty. The kettle hissed, and we waited side by side, close but not touching. "You stopped coming around," she said finally. "You stopped showing up," I answered. Her shoulders dropped. "I thought it would be easier if I pulled back." "Was it?" She turned then, really looking at me. Her eyes were tired, softer than I'd ever seen them. "No," we sat at the kitchen table, mugs between us. The steam curled and disappeared, the way it always did. "I don't know what you want from me," she said. I swallowed. "I don't know either. Just not silence." Her hand tightened around her mug. For a moment she didn't speak. Then, "I've spent years trying not to need anyone. And then you show up, with your patience, and your listening, and your eyes that don't look away." The words landed heavy. I wanted to answer, but my throat locked. Finally, I said, "So what happens now?" She laughed once, without humor. "If we were smart, nothing. You'd keep your distance. I'd keep my boundaries. But—" Her lips parted, then pressed shut again. She shook her head. "But I don't want to." The silence after that felt like standing on a cliff. My chest ached with everything unsaid. I thought of the coffee shop, the park bench, the messages I never sent. All the moments that almost became something. I leaned forward. "Then don't." For a long time she didn't move. Then, slowly, she reached across the table. Her hand brushed mine, light as breath. Not a grab, not a claim, just contact. Her thumb hovered, then pressed gently against my knuckle. It was the smallest thing, and it felt enormous. We sat there like that, in the kitchen, mugs cooling, no grand promises made. Just two people who finally stopped pretending not to feel what they felt. She looked at me, the corner of her mouth tilting into something like relief. "Okay," she whispered, and I whispered it back. Didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. Time passed, though I couldn't say exactly how. Weeks, maybe months. Things didn't explode. They didn't fall apart. They just shifted. I still saw her at 8:47 a.m. sometimes, the exact minute she always ordered her black coffee, though now she let me carry the mugs back to the table. She still cooled hers in the saucer first, and I still folded my napkin into sharp edges I didn't use. But the silences had changed. They weren't walls anymore. They were places to rest. One night we found ourselves back at the park bench. No tangled leash this time, no excuse. Just the two of us sitting side by side, the dog asleep at her feet. She leaned against the wood, eyes half closed. "Funny, isn't it? How this all started here." I smiled, looking at the swings swaying in the night breeze. "Accidents don't always feel like accidents." She hummed softly, not agreeing, not disagreeing, just letting the thought hang. I reached for her hand then, without hesitation. She didn't flinch. She squeezed back, quiet but certain. Sometimes her son was around. Sometimes I felt the guilt of what we were doing, like I was borrowing something that wasn't mine to borrow. But she never let it linger. "Don't think so far ahead," she'd say when she saw the look on my face. "Just think about the tea." So I did. I thought about the mugs cooling between us on her kitchen table. The porch light left off so the night could stay dark around us. The way she touched my hand, always light, like she still couldn't believe she was allowed to. We never made promises, never declared anything. What we had lived in gestures. Her remembering my order before I said it, me fixing the loose hinge on her gate without her asking. Both of us finding the same seat again and again, even when the cafe was half empty. It wasn't perfect. Some mornings she was tired, withdrawn. Some nights I wondered if I was in too deep. But then she'd laugh at something I said, or brush a crumb off my sleeve like it mattered, and the doubts would soften into something bearable. The last time I thought about leaving, really leaving, I found her waiting on the bench, a thermos of tea in her lap, an extra cup beside it. She handed it to me without a word. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't leaving. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't want to. Looking back now, I don't remember the exact words we ever said to make it real. Maybe there weren't any. Maybe all we needed was that quiet okay in the kitchen, and everything after was just living it. And sometimes, when the silence stretches between us, I catch her watching me with that same soft look, the one that says she remembers too. A look that says we don't need to finish the sentence anymore. Sparkles, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?